guys, Evan Ork here, back in another video, and today we're going to be doing a review on the Bandai Gamera Rebirth figure. So we are now in the starting process of doing figure reviews for all the Jeeves figures I got this year. Now, if in case you didn't see my Jeeves haul, I'm just going to say that I got 11 figures from this year's G-Fest. I do want to mention though that I'm probably going to only be reviewing 10 just because one of them is the giant condor figure, but it's actually really tiny and I don't think it's worth a review. So I think I'm going to do as many as 10 figure reviews, meaning the next 10 weeks you'll be getting a figure review. So we're going to be starting off with something that's a more recent modern figure, a newly released figure, and that is the Gamera Rebirth, considering that Gamera Rebirth is the newest type of kaiju content that is hitting kaiju fans right now, with the exception of maybe Ultraman Blazer. So I'm very excited for the show, but in regards to the figure itself, I just want to say that the biggest pro I have to say about this is the detail. The detail on this design, of course, which of course they're mimicking off of how it looks in the show, is pretty accurate and is pretty good. First things first, I love the scales that we have on the tail here. We also have the same adaptation of scale detail really across the legs and the arms. The actual shell detail is pretty generic, but of course I do respect this kind of moldy, hardened shell detail here, this kind of bumpiness that you can actually feel with your own fingers. That is pretty close attention to detail and more scales on the top of the head. Facial detail is pretty good. I like how we got the facial structure and the teeth, of course, as well as his kind of his two front fangs. Not much detail in the center here, where of course he shoots the beam in the middle of out of his stomach, but it's still good enough, I would feel, to say that this is probably the best thing about this figure. So let's get into the next part about this figure. The next part about this figure is the paint job. Now when it comes to the paint job on this figure, I'm just gonna say that it's a solid average, just because yes, you are correct in noticing that it's really just one primary color, which is like this very, very darkish greenish gray. But yeah, that's really just seen throughout. Any other colors I would argue can be seen here, maybe with the mouth, which is of course is red, and the claws, which are black. The only thing that stands out, and which yes, I would argue is booming, but it's very faintly noticeable, is this light blue lining that we see across the center going up to his neck. And of course, that's the same color they use for his eyes. So I wouldn't say that we see it very often throughout this figure, but for how often it is used, I would say that that's a nice detail we got about this figure. Let's get into the next thing I like about this figure. So when it comes to the cons of this figure, as you guessed, Bandai did the same mistake again. I don't know why they keep making this mistake and how vintage Bandais are somehow better than this, but the articulation on this figure is not good at all. We only have 3 joints of articulation. So when it comes to Bandai's, I always say that they should have at least 4 joints. This only has 3, as I mentioned earlier. It has the 2 arms here, which in all fairness, yes, they do go 360, and it has the tail here. However, no other joints of articulation. We also have the glue seal here. I do think that was probably the one example of a glue seal, which if there wasn't one, maybe it would be a little too weird, just because if you could move his entire head along with the shell, then it would look a little strange, I must say. They still could have done maybe some articulation with the feet here, and maybe they could have done something with the head where it didn't have to go all the way down to the shell, maybe just this point where my finger is going across it. So yeah, just examples like that would have given it 5 or 6 joints of articulation. I just think it needs to have a lot more, and I don't know why Bandai keeps having the same mistake. The next con about this figure, which is a major con, but it's the final con, and this is probably a con that I don't think I've ever said in a review before. It's that I don't like the way they kind of formed this Bandai. I mean, what I mean by that is, from a profile, it looks pretty normal, but the way that they did this arch where the head is going down, and I do get that they're trying to replicate the design, but if you were to then flip this to the front, it does not look normal. I mean, in my opinion, a figure that would look appealing to anyone, at least if you're using it for photography or a fan film or whatnot, is one where the head stands upright and where you can make eye contact with it from this camera angle. Instead, we're seeing its head just go down, and the whole shell, for that matter, just start to begin this tiptoe down. I just think that in the end, this Bandai really is just a clump of plastic. Probably one of the few examples where I just don't like the way it's formed, and I just feel like they could have done a way better job. So in general, I'd be rating this figure a 7.5 out of 10. Would still recommend it, just because, it's, I really recommend any figure that's 6.5 out of 10 and above. But in general, this isn't something I would highly recommend if just, for the sake of saving $40 and you're not that big of a Gamera fan. It's not that great of a figure. I just think it slightly reaches the edge of saying, okay, you guys should get it if you really want it. But no, I feel like the cons practically outweigh the pros. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this figure review. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys later, and bye-bye.